Hi guys, today we're going to take a look at the Unit 1 Classwork packet, page 8. Once again, that's the Unit 1 Classwork packet, page 8. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the midpoint formula. Now, as you'll recall, the midpoint is a point that lies right in the middle of a line segment, right? Now we're going to extend that idea. Instead of just looking at some random segment in space or drawn on my board, we're going to look at it at a segment that's drawn on the XY plane. So there's actually a formula that I can use in order to find the midpoint. And this is it. x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. Now, before we actually work with this formula, I want to make sure that something is clear. This formula is actually something that you learned back in 7th grade without even realizing it. In 7th grade, or maybe even a little bit earlier, depending on what math course you took, you learned about something called the average. The average of two numbers was the number that was right in the middle, right? Add them up, divide by the number of numbers. In this case, all we do is we add up the x's and divide by the number of x's. Add up the y's and divide by the number of y's. So if you prefer, another way of representing this formula is the average of the x's, comma, the average of the, I don't know why I wrote it like that, I apologize, shame on me, average of the y's. Okay, so let's take a look at how this would actually look either on a test question, a quiz question, or both, okay? So let's take a look first at question number 4. All right, once again, this is page 8 of the Unit 1 Classwork packet, and we're looking at number 4. So number 4 asks us to find the midpoint, and they give us 2 points. So let me write those down. 7 comma negative 5, right? And 9 comma negative 1. All right. Now, I don't know about you, but way back in the day, in like, I don't know, 6th grade, I learned that x came first, and then came y, right? Maybe it was back in kindergarten, I don't know. But so what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna do some labeling. I'm gonna call this x1, y1, and I'm gonna call this x2, y2. Again, it doesn't really matter which point is which in this case, because addition is commutative, okay? And you'll see that in a few minutes. But as long as you understand that x comes first and y comes second, I think we'll be just fine. So with that in mind, let's plug into our formula. So I'm going to take x1 plus x2, so that's going to be 7 plus 9, and then I'm going to divide it by 2. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the y's, so I'm going to do negative 5 plus negative 1 over 2. What's 7 plus 9? 16. So 16 over 2. Negative 5 plus negative 1, that's like saying negative 5 minus 1, which is just negative 6, right? And I'm assuming everybody can divide these numbers to get 8 comma negative 3. Now let's think about if that makes sense. What number's between 7 and 9? Oh my god, it's 8. What number is between negative 5 and negative 1? Negative 3 is smack dab in the middle, okay? So again, it's a relatively simple problem, okay? That's all there really is to it. But there's one other way that this question could be asked. And instead of applying the midpoint formula directly, they're kind of asking you to think about it conceptually, like what's going on a graph. So for that, we're actually going to look at the next page in your packet. That would be page, what comes after 8? Page 9. And we're going to take a look together at question number 7. So once again, we're moving on to page 9. So you might want to like scroll down, and we're going to look at number 7. Okay, now number 7 is a little bit weird because instead of giving us the endpoints and asking us to find the midpoint, this time they're going to give us an endpoint and a midpoint and ask us to find the other endpoint. So let's see how that's going to work, okay? Okay, so we have So we have JL So let me write this down here. We have segment JL, and K is the midpoint, right? Okay, so let me write that down here. So K, this is our midpoint, so I'm going to put it in the middle, and they say that K is -5, 10. All right, so far so good. And then they tell us that L is as follows: -8, 6. I'm not going to label that mid, I'm going to label that end, and that's L. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to find, right? I'm trying to go backwards. Oh my gosh, I'm like blocking it. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to go like backwards, and I'm trying to find out what are the coordinates of J. Okay, so let's think. So this point's on the end, right? So to get from -8 to -5, what did I have to do? Like, how many did I add? Well, I added 3. Some of you guys might have a little bit of trouble with your integers, okay, and that's okay. We'll get there. But again, I'm just looking at the change. To get from this endpoint to the midpoint, I added 3. To get from the 6 to the 10, what did I have to do? I added 4. So guess what? In order to get from the midpoint to the other endpoint, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. So to get from K to J, I'm going to add 3. And over here, I'm going to add 4. So guess what? The coordinates of point J are -2, 14. And if I were to actually graph this out, okay, it would actually make pretty good sense. But again, I don't want to, scare anybody with my terrible drawing skills here. That might still be a little unclear, so let's try one more example of that, okay? Let's try number 8. Let me write this down. Okay, so number 8, they give me a segment, and the segment is PR. So that means P and R are the end points of that segment, okay? Now they give me P. They tell me that P is 5, 6. Q is -1, 3. And I don't know what the heck R is. So I'm just gonna write that over here. Okay? So this time, instead of going from bottom upward, we're gonna start from the top and go down. To get from 5 down to -1, what do I have to subtract? Well, I subtract 6. How about to get from 6 to 3? What do I have to subtract? Well, I subtract 3. Oh my god. So what do you think I'm going to subtract again right here? I'm going to -6 again. So I lost 1, I lost 6 more. In total, I lost 7. And when I subtract 3 here, what's 3 minus 3? 0. All right. So that takes a little bit of getting used to, okay? And I'll be the first one to admit it. The most important thing for you guys to master, though, is the midpoint formula. So this right over here is priority. This is going to come back a fair bit. For example, when we do perpendicular bisectors in Unit 4, so you're going to want to make sure you master that, okay? But in a nutshell, a midpoint is the point right in the middle of a segment. If we're going to think about it algebraically, we have a formula that we can use to calculate the midpoint. Or if we want to think about it in terms of something we learned before, like statistics, we can also think of the midpoint as the average of the x-coordinates and the average of the y-coordinates. Why is my face cut off?